Episode 59, The Common Bond. Welcome to Longing for More, where professionals haunted by the knowing that they were created for more come to strengthen their faith and find the path to stop wasting time in boredom or overwhelm and instead live a life of fulfillment and peace. We were getting acquainted with the driver of the minivan as our small group pulled up to the nondescript building in the sweltering heat of the capital of Alabama. We were all so intent on the conversation about the heat that I didn't even pay attention to the name of the little brewery we were entering. But after we'd made our selection from the list of craft beers, I began to notice the quaint little space we had entered. It was my kind of place. Rustic brick walls, industrial tables. Certainly not fancy, but not a dive bar either. Then I noticed the swag on the shelf on the wall. T-shirts, beer glasses, hats, all with the logo of Common Bond on them. I liked that too. It's something we don't think about much anymore, the common bond. Our society has become so polarized lately that we're trained to look at the differences between us before we look at the common bond, aren't we? Whether it's something as volatile as religion or politics, or as simple as hair or clothing style, we seem to zero in on our differences rather than seeking our common bond. Before I go farther, I do want to warn you that some of the topics I'm going to cover today may stir up conversations you may not be ready to have with children. So I encourage you to use discretion if you are listening in a space where children may be listening with you. A few weeks ago, I mentioned that I would be attending my 40-year high school reunion. We had several opportunities to gather, and each one was a great place to reconnect with old friends. I loved catching up where people had landed and what they were doing with their lives. But I loved even more getting to know people I'd never gotten, or more likely taken, the time to get to know before. You see, back in the day, I wasn't confident enough in myself to initiate a conversation with someone to find out what we had in common. If they didn't start the conversation, it wasn't going to happen. Fortunately, I've gotten over myself through the years, and I love that I've learned a few basic questions one needs to ask to find something in common with people. There's always something if you try to find it. At this stage in life, it was pretty easy to find that common bond with my former classmates. Although we all have separate lives in different parts of the country, we will always have our years of school time together, and somehow the stories of our adventures were much richer after all these years. Truly, everyone had shed the need to pretend to be something we weren't, and we were simply just us. Older and grayer, yes, but really the same crazy kids who lived with such intensity all those years ago. As much as I hated to, I had to pull away from the reunion with my old friends before it was over to venture off to Alabama for a conference with my husband. As I reconnected with folks I'd met in recent years, I also met new people I'd not encountered before. It was fun to meet the wives of many of the other attendees for the first time and find those things we have in common. I especially enjoyed a beautiful young woman who was originally from Romania. I was enthralled to listen to her thick accent as she shared her very different take on so many of the things we had in common. Age and nationality differences had little bearing on our time together as we bonded over learning the history and the culture of the area there in Alabama. One of the most compelling exhibits I attended was at the Interpretive Center for the Selma to Montgomery Freedom March. That was held back in 1965. Although I remembered studying it in my history books, it really didn't come to life for me until I watched the videos and listened to the stories and the voices of the people who experienced it firsthand. Although the violence and brutality of the law enforcement trying to stop the marches were horrifying, I couldn't help but be inspired by the conviction and the determination of those people who stood up for what they believed against all odds. The conditions that they overcame to bring attention to their plight would have deterred many from continuing on. But their ability to stay committed to what they believed in made me want to cheer. That the numbers at the beginning of the march swelled from approximately 3,000 in Selma to 25,000 as they marched on the Capitol 4 days later in Montgomery was a true testament to the bond that was created over that one issue, that issue of equality. I find it unfathomable that those battles had to be fought and indeed are still being fought on so many fronts even today. When will we ever be able to lay all the differences we have, and I agree there are many, aside and come together with the common bond that we are all human? We are all created by God, and we all have the right to be treated with kindness and respect. No matter whether we see eye to eye on personal responsibility, regardless of whose granddaddy did what to whose grandpa, or what someone may or may not have done, we should be able to agree that everyone deserves the right to be treated humanely and with dignity. A dear friend and I have been having an ongoing conversation about the gay rights movement and how we, as Christians, should respond. She recently brought to my attention the fact that some Christian women have called out Beth Moore for not speaking out against the LGBTQ community. I wasn't aware of the situation, so I tried to do some research on it. There are lots of stories out there, and I found it ironic that a few short years ago, the LGBTQ community was speaking out against Beth for her comments that they felt had betrayed them. It seems she can't win, and my heart goes out to her as a longtime student of hers and as someone who knows the lines aren't exactly clear. I'll be honest with you, this is a topic I struggle with on a regular basis. I've become very good friends with a woman whose teenage son has recently declared his preference for others of the same sex. We haven't discussed it at length, and I'm not even sure that I've just said that properly, but I do know that he's an extremely bright young man, and he has so much going for him. I admire and respect my friend because she has embraced his lifestyle and is quickly becoming an expert across continents in support of the LGBTQ community. I struggle because though I care for her very much, she stands for something that I believe with all my soul is a sin. Does that mean I should walk away from our friendship? Does that mean that I should try to convince her how wrong she is and how she needs to change her life and that of her child? I don't think so. If it did mean that, I would have to terminate every relationship with every person I know because, you see, we are all sinners and we all fall short of the glory of God. If we all picked our friends based on whether they sin or not, she wouldn't choose me either. Does that mean I'm out attending rallies with her and boosting her business online? No, I am not. But I do talk with her regularly, and I do support her personally because I love her and I want her to feel loved and accepted by someone who loves Jesus and doesn't pass judgment on her or her son. I pray that she sees the love of Christ through me. I pray that maybe in some small way she will be inspired to fall in love with him and his truth the way that I have. You see, she and I have a common bond. She has a son who is gay, and I have a brother who is gay. In fact, some of my most favorite people in the world are gay, and it is none of my business what they do in the privacy of their lives, just like it is none of their business what I do in the privacy of my life. I am called to love people that God brings into my life, unconditionally. Do I love my friend who had an abortion any less for that decision? No. Do I love my coworker who gossips about others any less? No. Do I despise that couple that is living together outside of marriage? No. I could go on for hours, but I think you get the point. The bottom line is, even if my friend and I didn't have the bond of having someone in our lives who is gay, we'd have so many other things in common. In fact, that is not what brought us together in the first place. We are both health coaches. We are both passionate about sharing our stories and helping others live their best lives. We both love the beach and traveling to beautiful places in the world. We are mothers and wives and daughters and sisters. We can talk for hours about life and the world we live in and never discuss the topic of sexual orientation. And I really think that that is how it should be. And unless both parties are interested and willing to have that conversation, it shouldn't ever come up. I don't force my beliefs on her, and she doesn't force her beliefs on me. I would never consider shouting obscenities to her or her son or anyone who doesn't agree with my beliefs, and I would never consider it my place to stop them from living their lives the way they see fit. If I don't like it, I can leave. I can stop corresponding with her and even stop attending events where she might be. I can truly only control what I do, not what anyone else does. And, Like I think it is wrong for the law enforcement who used violence to try and stop the freedom marches back in 1965, I think it is wrong for people to use violence to stop the people marching on the gay rights parades today. I don't agree with the parades, and I don't believe that that is the way to change the way the world looks at the issue. But that's not my call. And, as I said earlier, I don't believe violence or angry words are ever the way to change someone's heart on an issue. I agree with a dear friend who said it so well. We can never bully someone into finding Christ. We can only change the way someone thinks, believes, or acts by coming together, finding the common bond between us, and then seeking to understand one another from a place of love and from a space of mutual respect and trust. That takes time, patience, and a lot of grace. We must forgive one another for our mistakes, our past hurts, and come together with an understanding that we are all a combination of the lives we've lived up to that point in time. We can influence others to see things our way, but only when we take time to build a relationship. That is what Jesus did, and I believe that is what he is calling us to do. Build relationships, build trust, seek to love and understand. This week, as we celebrate America's 243rd birthday, let's remember what brings us all together. Our heritage as a free people, free to worship where we want, free to pursue a career that makes us happy and feel fulfilled, free to live where we want. Each of these freedoms come at a cost and a responsibility. Our common bond is that we all have the inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That doesn't mean it will be handed over to us on a platter. We have to work hard for the things we want to enjoy in life, and I, for one, am grateful for the opportunities I have to reach for the things I long for in this life. I get to choose what I do with my day, how I spend my limited resources of time, and so do you. I get to choose how I respond to the people God brings into my path every day. I can choose to treat them with dignity and respect, or I can treat them as though they are unworthy. Even when I don't agree with the choices they make, I respect their right to make it so long as it doesn't endanger another human being, including unborn babies. It doesn't involve taking something that doesn't belong to them, or they don't expect me to pay their way when they are completely capable of paying their own way. So remember, as you stand in the checkout line to buy your hot dogs and apple pie for your celebrations this week, that you are no more entitled to what you believe than the person standing next to you in line. This country was founded on our right to worship and believe what we choose to worship and believe. Not everyone will agree with you, but you don't have to focus on those things that divide, but rather focus on the things that bring you together, those things that are a common bond between you. I want to thank you for listening today. It means a lot to me that you stopped by. Your time is valuable, and that you would choose to spend even this few minutes with me means so much. If you liked what you heard, please share this message with others in your life. Let's all be the voice for treating others with dignity and respect, for searching for that common bond, for living the life that God called us to live. If this is something you find yourself wishing you could do, but struggle to do on a consistent basis, let's visit. I'd love to help you let go of those things that are holding you from being all that you were created to be. Have an amazing week. Enjoy your 4th of July celebrations. And if you are listening to this after the celebrations are over, please keep the spirit of freedom and love going by always seeking the common bond. Go, be blessed, and live your more.